You are now listening to The Spearsy Spin with your host, Mike Spears.
Hi folks, and welcome to The Spearsy Spin, Thursday, May 4th, 2017. Well, who is Tony Alamo, or should I say Pastor Alamo, or should I say rapist, polygamist Alamo? Tonight we talk about the cult characteristic of those who use religion as a form of control, and also I'll try to endear you with my prognostic approach to the future of religion here in the United States. But first, what in heaven's name is going on with religion? As I'm sure many of you know, religion as a whole has been evaporating here in the United States since about 1945. But why? Well, I believe the answers can be found here in the United States and other countries within the churches. Today in the world, there are over 4,300 religions. That, of course, makes the sale of one particular religion to a group of followers a problem. The folks want to know what religion best represents their needs and concerns. But also, with so many religions to choose from, the folks get a sense of dissension within the religious ranks. This decline in religion has even caught the eyes of both Duke University as well as UCL, which is the University College of London. Now, their recent studies, in fact, they show a dramatic decline in those attending church here in the United States. But their study also shows that the belief in God is falling off as well. The research shows that 94% of those born here in the United States before 1935 appear to lay claim to being of a religious following. But as time goes on, only 71% claim a religious alliance for those born after 1975. More importantly, only 45% of young adults today between 18 and 30 say they have no doubt that God exists, and 68% of folks that are 65 or older, they claim the same thing. Now, church attendance is way down, with only 41% of people that are 70 and older attending church at least once a month. But according to the study, people 60 and under only have an 18% association of being in church. So, what is causing this change? Well, I believe it starts with a systemic conceptualization of what is around us on a day-to-day basis, and that we tend to unconsciously absorb way too much negative input. For example, from 9/11 to the never-ending reports of terrorism and the gruesome and fearful episodes of evil portrayed by these terrorists, that would give most humans pause to exact a reason for their existence, and secondly, why does God allow this? Next, sexual abuse in the churches. Denominations? Many. This again tends to create disillusionment in our psyches that we are in both a holy and safe place within the church. Next, what of the religious ideologues that we sometimes find preaching within the churches, the synagogues, and the mosque? What are their personal agendas and perhaps even their attempt at mind control, attempting to make you adapt rather than asking you for your secular confidences? We often find people who have grudges, concerns, and even hates about others sometimes develop neurotic hatreds that drive them to become aligned with others who share these same hates and beliefs. But it would seem strange to find these folks in church and yet in many churches we do. But with all that said, the question I hear constantly, especially from women in bad or non-existent relationships, where is God? My answer has been and continues to be, God is where he's always been. The question should be, where are you? Stay riveted to your radio or iPhones, computers, Blackberries, or whatever you listen to us with, because up next is another reason why the flock has scattered away from the preachings of today. We'll be talking about Tony Alamo, disgraced preacher, child sex abuser, and he used religion for his own agendas.
Don't go away. We have to pay some bills, and then we're coming back with Mike Spears.
What kind of government cares more about appeasing Islamic terrorists than defending the constitutional rights of its citizens? A government that would disarm us during the age of terror. Nothing would make us more vulnerable to generations of suffering and slaughter than the destruction of our Second Amendment. But many of our politicians, aided by a relentless media, are launching that attack themselves. They dream of joining the rest of the disarmed peoples of the world, entrusting our survival to the mercy of monsters. The greatest damage the terrorists could ever inflict upon us is disarmament at the hands of the political elites. But we will never offer our right to survive as a fool's ransom to the world's killers. Our freedom is what they fear most. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Don't miss even one show. Subscribe to the Spearsy Spin now. Click that subscribe button and be sure to also click that bell next to the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we post new videos.
I have a message from Mike Spears at the Spearsy Spin. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a quality show, I can tell you I have no class. But what I do have is a very particular set of radio skills. These skills make this show a favorite for people like you. If you subscribe now, that will be the end of it. If you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will bug you until you subscribe.
Well, we're over now in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're talking about Tony Alamo, who used to be a street preacher, and he was great at preaching the good word. As a matter of fact, old Tony grew his ministry into a multi-million-dollar semi-conglomerate, if you will, that included a network of businesses and property. Yay! Uh-oh, wait a minute. That was before he was convicted in Arkansas of sexually abusing young girls. But, of course, the courts got it all wrong. You see, these girls were actually his wives, according to Tony. Tony Alamo was once known for designing decorated jackets for celebrities that included Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, and others. And in 2009, charges stuck that he took underage girls across state lines for sex, including a 9-year-old. The judge who sentenced him gave him 175 years in prison, telling him that one day you will face a higher and greater judge than me. May he have mercy on your soul. But before his downfall, Alamo started preaching on the California streets in the 60s. He was anti-Catholic and talked endlessly about apocalyptic rhetoric, claimed God authorized polygamy, and that gays were the tools of Satan. He also believed girls were fit for marriage once they had started their menstrual cycles. Consent is puberty, Alamo told the Associated Press in September of 2008. Meanwhile, federal agents were sent to investigate possible child abuse and pornography at Alamo's home and church. Alamo made all key decisions in his group with regard to who got married, what children were taught in the school and who received clothes and even who was allowed to eat. He began taking multiple wives in the early 1990s, including a 15-year-old girl in 1994. Later, this followed by taking other girls as his wife that were increasingly even younger. Mr. Alamo was convicted after 5 women testified they were married to him in secret ceremonies when they were minors, including an 8-year-old girl. The 8-year-old was later taken to places outside of Arkansas for sex. Mr. Alamo grew increasingly unhinged after his wife Susan died, as she had died from cancer in 1982. Fort Smith in northwestern Arkansas is where his wife's body was kept, but it was kept in a room there at the ministry. And while his followers daily kept a vigil for months, praying for a resurrection. After there was no resurrection, her body was buried in a crypt on the ministry's 300-acre compound in Dyer. But then in 1991, Alamo ordered his followers to pack up because federal marshals were seizing the property to satisfy a court judgment. The feds found Susan Alamo's concrete crypt smashed open and her coffin gone. Alamo returned his wife's remains to her family 7 years later after being threatened with jail. Tony Alamo, his real name of his church, was Tony Alamo Christian Ministries. Now, back in the day, they attracted the hippies and the youngsters. And in the 1960s, they were known as Jesus freaks. In the 1970s and 80s, his ministry made elaborately designed denim jackets that sold to the celebrities like Presley and Jackson and many, many others. Now, the red leather jacket that Jackson wore on the cover of his Bad album was in fact a Tony Alamo original. It was later sold at auction to settle federal tax claims against Alamo. At its climax, Alamo's ministry claimed thousands of members nationwide. Ministry handbills outlined the group's belief in flying saucers to his hatred of the Vatican and homosexuals. Alamo claimed to be a Jew that had had a supernatural experience through which he became a born-again Christian. From his compound in northwest Arkansas, Alamo presided over his businesses, including gas stations, a hog farm, a grocery store, and a restaurant, and that all founded his ministry. Sadly, the IRS claimed Alamo owed $7.9 million in taxes, and federal agents raided his properties in 1991. I guess he should have put the businesses in Al Sharpton's name. Anyway, he served 4 years in prison despite claiming he had no tax liability because he received no salary. Tony Alamo was born Bernie Lazar Hoffman on September 20th, 1934, to a Jewish family in Joplin, Missouri. He arrived in Los Angeles in the 1960s, claiming he was a music promoter, including the Beatles. He and his wife legally changed their names to Tony and Susan Alamo after they married in Las Vegas in 1966. Alamo died on Tuesday at a federal prison hospital in Butner, North Carolina, this according to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons. He was 82. So that's kind of a long, drawn-out story, but it goes to the point of why, when we have, the different issues in religion that we have, and these come out into the public, and they're always negative. That's why you see so many people scratching their head and say, "Well, wait a minute. How does this benefit me?" It seems to be that this is geared more to helping the church. It's geared more to helping the pastor. And it's geared toward a lot of people with hidden agendas. And while that is true, it's not all true. And there are many great churches, and there are many great religions. It's just sadly, we have the Jim Bakkers and the Jim Jones, and we have the Waco, Texas people, and on and on and on. And that's a story for another time. But at the end here, this is one of the many reasons why religion is beginning to take a nosedive. So again, what can you do? Well, if you're of the religious belief, live by example. Don't talk. Live by example. Show people what living correctly is about, and if you want to live under the good book, do that. But don't make a big to-do about it, and don't go out and thump a Bible. That's not going to help. That's our show. Now you know what we think. Well, we'd like to know what you think. So if you would, please go to thespearsy.blogspot.com and leave us your thoughts. Be professional, because you never know what you put there could end up on one of our shows. There's only one world, folks. We all have to live in it. So let's do the best we can to do that. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for being with us today. Until next time.